The auction hall buzzed with the mechanical hum of universal translators and the clicking of mandibles, tentacles, and various appendages as species from across the galaxy bid on indentured servants. Captain Marcus Chen stood at the back of the Yao crowded chamber, his human eyes scanning the proceedings with growing disgust. The galactic labor exchange was perfectly legal. Desperate beings could indenture themselves for passage, food, or medical care for their families. But legal didn't make it right, and Marcus had seen enough slavery disguised as commerce to last several lifetimes. Lot 847, announced the Vorthak auctioneer, its translator crackling with static. 2 Zilithian females, ages equivalent to your species' young adults. Previous bids declined due to behavioral incompatibilities. Marcus leaned forward as 2 figures were escorted onto the platform. The first was barely 5 feet tall with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer like moonlight on water. Her silver hair hung in intricate braids, and her large, luminous eyes darted nervously across the crowd. Everything about her posture screamed gentleness, the way she moved like she was afraid of disturbing the very air around her. The second couldn't have been more different. Nearly 6.5 feet of lean muscle and defiance, her darker blue skin bore intricate natural markings that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. Her white hair was cropped short and practical, and her eyes burned with barely contained fury. She kept herself positioned protectively in front of her smaller companion. The smaller one is too soft, the auctioneer continued dismissively. Previous owners report excessive empathy, inability to perform harsh labor, and tendency to care for other servants rather than focus on assigned duties. Completely useless for standard indentured positions. A few chuckles rippled through the crowd. Marcus felt his jaw clench. The larger one is too wild, the auctioneer went on. Aggressive, uncontrollable, refuses orders that conflict with her moral code. Has injured 3 previous handlers who attempted to separate her from her bond sister. More laughter from the audience. Marcus stepped closer, studying the 2 Zilithians. The smaller one, Lyra, according to the data pad he'd purchased, was trembling slightly, but not from fear. She was restraining herself from reaching out to comfort a wounded Grakian in the holding pen nearby. The larger one, Zara, stood like a fortress wall, her bioluminescent markings flaring brighter each time someone made a crude comment. Opening. Bid. 50 credits for the pair, the auctioneer announced. Do I hear? The hall fell silent. 50 credits wouldn't buy a decent meal on most civilized worlds. No one moved. 40 credits? Silence. 30? Marcus watched as Lyra's shoulders sagged with each declining number. Zara's markings pulsed faster, anger and desperation mixing in patterns that Marcus found himself oddly able to read. 20. Credits, final call. 1,000 credits. Every head in the chamber turned toward Marcus as he strode forward. Gasps and startled exclamations filled the air. Sir, the auctioneer stammered, these specimens are problematic. Surely you've been informed. I'll take them as they are, Marcus interrupted. 1,000 credits, cash payment, immediate transfer. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood in the processing bay as the 2 Zilithians were released from their restraints. Zara immediately moved to shield Lyra, her markings now pulsing a deep, warning red. Easy, Marcus said, raising his hands peacefully. I'm not here to hurt either of you. Then why? Zara's voice was melodic despite her anger, her translator rendering the musical tones of her language into crisp English. Humans are known for their practical approaches to indentured labor. Marcus smiled sadly. Maybe that's the problem with my species' reputation. I'm Captain Chen, and I run a deep space medical relief ship. I need crew members who are too soft and too wild for normal work. Lyra stepped out from behind her bond sister, hope flickering in her large eyes. Medical relief? We respond to disasters, plagues, conflicts, anywhere people are suffering and dying. I need someone too soft to ignore pain when she sees it. Someone who'll prioritize saving lives over following orders. He looked at Lyra, then turned to Zara. And I need someone too wild to let regulations stop her from doing what's right. Someone who'll fight anyone who tries to hurt her crew. The two aliens exchanged a glance, some complex communication passing between them through shifting bioluminescent patterns. The work is dangerous, Marcus continued. We go where others won't. We save who others abandon. Sometimes we break laws to do it. If that sounds like something you could live with, then welcome aboard the Mercy's Hand. Zara's markings shifted to a warm golden hue. You would trust us? After what they said about us? They said you were too soft and too wild, Marcus replied. Where I come from, we have a saying. The best people usually are. 3 months later, the Mercy's Hand was responding to a plague outbreak in the Rigel system. In the ship's medical bay, Lyra worked tirelessly, her gentle touch bringing comfort to dying colonists while her empathic abilities helped her sense exactly what each patient needed. Her excessive empathy had saved 17 lives in the past week alone. On the bridge, Zara coordinated the rescue efforts, her uncontrollable nature having led her to ignore planetary authority orders and land in a quarantine zone to evacuate trapped civilians. Her moral inflexibility had prevented a corporate cover-up that would have cost thousands of lives. Marcus stood watching his crew work, remembering the auction hall where no one else had seen their value. In human space, there was an old saying that had guided explorers and pioneers for centuries. One person's trash was another's treasure. But sometimes, Marcus reflected, it wasn't about finding treasure in the discarded. Sometimes it was about recognizing that what others called flaws were actually the rarest virtues in the galaxy. As the Mercy's Hand jumped to hyperspace toward their next mission, Lyra and Zara stood together at the observation deck, their bioluminescent markings creating beautiful, synchronized patterns of contentment and belonging. They had found their place among the humans, the species crazy enough to believe that being too soft and too wild were exactly the qualities the universe needed most.